Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a closer look at the Kubey Knives Vertigo. This is a collaboration with custom knife maker Peter Carey. I love a lot of his stuff, and trust me, if you're a knife enthusiast or just someone who appreciates top-notch craftsmanship, you're going to want to stick around for this review. First up, let's talk about some specs. I call this a nice medium-sized EDC knife at 7.24 inches long. It has a 3.11 inch Wharncliffe blade of S35V in steel. My particular one has a dark, heavy blast on it. They have other variants that don't have this. They sent me this knife, so they just sent me one of them. This should still be a fairly versatile blade shape, even though you have a fairly straight edge. It's going to be great at the utility cuts because you can get that tip down into things, and it should be great at piercing as well. We're going to definitely find out if that's enough belly to do cuts on a flat cutting surface in just a minute. You have a small row of functional jimping. It grabs the thumb nicely without being uncomfortable. And a perfectly executed sharpening tool. That's what I like to see right here. That plunge grind comes all the way back to right here, so you should have a lot of sharpening life before it'll even think about widening at the heel. Nice little top swedge for some flair. Your S35 is hardened to 60 to 62 HRC, and I believe it. After testing the Kubey Knives Bluff, I was pretty impressed with that one, so I'm hoping the same for this one. Now I think it's time I put this knife through some real world cut tests to see how it performs. Being this is my second Kubey knife to test, I've been pretty darn impressed with them. Sorry if the sound quality isn't the best. I'm on a small vacation with some friends and my wife, and I don't have my mic or anything. So if it sounds a little funny, that's why. I'm doing this in our hotel room right now, so I can not fall behind any further in my reviews. But yeah, slicing very well. Both knives that I've gotten, I mean, they could have cherry picked them. I don't know that. But both of them super, super sharp. And, you know, I'm not usually excited whenever I see S35VN, but they've been performing good. A lot better than a lot of the S35VN I've tested recently. But now we're going to test the ergos. This one has a very well contoured handle. No hot spots at all. The pocket clip is contoured as well. And being that you have a fairly straight edge, you can get so much power into your cut. You're going to have full power from heel to tip, just like a regular straight edge Wharncliffe. Yeah, very comfortable. And right away, you know, when you're starting to cut this 1/2 inch sisal rope, when it cuts it cleanly like that, and I'm not struggling at all, yeah, it means it's not just sharp, it's got bite to it, and it's always a good thing. I'm able to swap it up to the pointer finger grip quite often. And I was worried that this knife wasn't going to have enough belly. Now I am cutting it toward the edge of my cutting board, so, you know, it's doable. I will say it wasn't as easy as, you know, something with a little bit more belly. But I'm just trying to show you that, you know, sisal rope isn't easy to cut anyway. So if I can get through it, you may not be getting a whole lot of the edge on it. You know, probably that first inch maybe of the actual cutting edge I'm able to get onto the cutting surface before I'm either going to contact, you know, my knuckles, or not really in this case because I'm cutting it at the edge. But yeah, wasn't terrible to where I felt like I had to bring it up on the block. I probably wouldn't do it for anything with less belly than this. This is probably that sweet spot where it still has good versatility. And man, it just performed really, really well. All these cuts were nice and clean. I didn't struggle at all. So yeah, very happy. And of course, it's a little scalpel up there by the tip. Had to do some extra cuts because it was cut so cleanly. And that edge never felt like it was slowing down. Now that deep blasted finish does look pretty rough once you do all this type of cutting, but I'm okay with that. And like I said earlier, there's other variations of this, so you don't have to get this type. But very impressed with the performance. Now onto the deployment of this knife. You have dual thumb studs that have the perfect amount of texture there. They're comfortable, and a very well-tuned detent. This thing rockets out. It's nice and smooth riding on cage ceramic ball bearings. You can reverse flick it if you like. You can slow roll it if you like. Definitely a phenomenal job on the detent on this one, and a nice crisp stout action. Now let's check out the scales. You have a heavy blasted stone washed titanium frame that is nice and contoured with I think it's Santa Clara camo carbon inlays on both sides, and a beautifully contoured 3D mill titanium pocket clip that's blind screwed, meaning it's screwed from the inside so you have no visible hole for the clip. You have a geared titanium backspacer that pretty much sits flush. You can feel it, but it's not going to give you much of any traction. I don't really ever notice that helps anyway. When it comes to the ergonomics on this one, I thought this was very, very comfortable. The contouring felt great. The clip contouring stayed out of the way of my palm. I had no hot spots. No matter which grip you hold it in, it's nice and comfortable, at least for my medium-sized hands. Even with my medium-sized hands, I still have a little bit left over, so it should fit your large hands. I don't know about XL hands. Your hardware on this one, you have the Kubey Knives logoed pivot, and you have TA construction throughout. Love seeing that. Now this pocket clip is tip up, right hand carry only, unfortunately for the lefties out there. And you have good spring tension, which you want, being that it's on this smooth carbon fiber surface. I found it went in and out of the pocket nicely and held it in there nicely. It had just the right amount of ramp to fit over the seams of all my jeans. And being that it's curved with the knife, I found it hugged this side of the pocket really well. And if you need to put a phone or something in there, you could definitely do that. No flipper tabs sticking out or anything. And it's not a deep carry, but it sits fairly deep in the pocket. And you definitely have something to grab a hold to pull it out of the pocket. There is no lanyard hole for the lanyard people out there. The centering on this one is right down the pipe. You have almost a 1-to-1 blade to handle ratio. I love seeing that. There is no internal pocketing on this knife, but you do have the pocketing for your carbon fiber inlays, bringing the weight to 106 grams or 3.74 ounces. I find that to be perfect. Definitely not cumbersome in the pocket at all. You have a nice sturdy titanium frame lock. Your engagement is around 50% on my particular knife with a hardened stainless steel lock insert. And you have nice chamfers on both sides, plus the lock side sits up a little bit higher than the show side scale. This one's very comfortable to disengage that lock. Very, very nicely done there. And the lockup on this one, when I say is a bank vault, there's no movement up or down, left or right. Very tight lockup. Definitely going to ensure it's going to stay open during use. Now let's move on to some size comparisons. It's identical in length to the Spyderco Power 3, and it's a little bit bigger than the Ontario Rat Model 2. And it's just a hair shorter than the Kubey Knives Bluff, and it's just about identical to the Kubey Knives Royal. And the two blades in my pocket today, it's a hair shorter than the Devo Fireball, and it's a hair longer than the Kaiser Drop Bear. And lastly, it's just a hair shorter than the Conwu Compadre, and it's just a hair longer than the Kershaw Bel Air. Now with every knife, we have some nitpicks and complaints, because no knife is perfect. But if I would have chose one of these, I wouldn't have went with the dark blasted blade. As you can see, it looks pretty rough after use, which I don't really care about that, but it definitely will open it up for corrosion. I live in a very high humid environment, and I don't need any help. And whenever you have those heavy dark blasted finishes, they open the pores on the blade a lot more. But like I said, there are versions that have either satin or stone wash blades, so that's not really a big deal. There's no lefty love on this one. And this isn't something that I really care a whole lot about, but I do get it. It is, I guess, a big deal. But if you look at the inlays, you have a perfect fitment here. It is sitting a little bit low on this side. And then you have a perfect fitment here. But as you can see on the back, you can see the dip right there in the material. And then if you go up here in the front, you can see a dip in the material here, which is causing it not to be a tight fitment there. You know, and that has to do with the contouring and how they did the carbon fiber. It doesn't bother me at all. It's not hurting the functionality, and it's not something that, unless I'm looking at it like this in HD, that I really pay attention to. Flip it over on this side. It's a pretty tight fitment throughout. And of course, you're going to have a dip here because of the lock bar. You do have a little dip right there also. No voids on my camo carbon that I see. They did a good job of finishing it. I also would have loved to see this lock bar relief done on the inside. That way you wouldn't have this right here. I think it would have looked a lot cleaner, just keeping this nice and clean, especially being that all this looks nice and clean. So to sum it all up, the Kubey Knives Vertigo is a fantastic piece of craftsmanship in my opinion. The premium S35 VN performed outstanding, and the comfortable titanium handle as well as the smooth and snappy deployment make this really stand out in the high-end knife market. Whether you're using it for your everyday task or just adding it to the collection, you can't go wrong with this one. Not to mention, this one's on sale for $211. I definitely think it's worth that. And I know some people may not think it's worth that, but if you could feel the knife, get it in hand, and feel the extra attention to detail, besides the little, things I talked about there, it's pretty impressive. Kubey Knives, whatever you want to call it, they have definitely stepped up their game over the last year and a half. Very impressed. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more in-depth knife and gear reviews. And let us know in the comments, what do you think of the Kubey Knives Vertigo? Until next time, keep those blades sharp, smile more.